I found that the number one metaphor for divinity around the world, in every religion and society really, is light. God is light. The Buddha says, become a light unto yourself. Uh, uh, the African religions about God, the sun, and light. The Celtic religion honors light and so forth. And of course, Christ saying, I am the light of the world, and so forth, and don't hide your light under a bush. So what's being said here by science is that, hey, light and matter are the same thing. And I'm saying as a theologian, yeah, and light and spirit are the primary metaphors of divinity. That's a cataphatic divinity, the God of light.
Maybe Teilhard de Chardin with his Weltstoff, spirit matter in the same word.
That too, yes, yes. And now there's something else that science is saying from this. My understanding is that for every molecule of light that is matter in the universe, there are 1 billion molecules of light that are not matter. What does that tell me? That being enfleshed light, incarnated light, which is what we are and the trees are and everything we see around us, this is rare. It's 1 in 1 billion. So we must cease making matter a scapegoat for spirit, which is what Augustine and the fall redemption dualist tradition of the West has done, and patriarchy, and integrate with today's science that in fact not only are our bodies light, but they're 1 in 1 billion. It's rare that that light and spirit have taken on flesh. So the incarnation, I think, takes on whole new meaning in this cosmic context. And instead of putting our bodies down and matter down, we should be, of course, fighting fiercely to preserve the health of our bodies, and that means, of course, the health of the food chain, of the soil, of the forests, of the air, and of the other animals, and the oceans and all the rest, you see. So I think we have an absolute revolution here, a 180-degree turn, supported by science, and reinforced by a healthy theology that is non-dualistic, that frankly was never, I don't think, better and more courageously put forth than by your own Italian brother, Thomas Aquinas. And he paid a price for it.
How do you respond to the accusation, if it is one, that your theology is New Age?
New Age. Well, I've written 3 books on Hildegard of Bingen, who's 800 years old, 3 books on Eckhart, who's 700 years old, and 1 major work on Aquinas, who's 750 years old. So I don't know that that's New Age. Plus,
Great age.
I don't know how new that is. Plus, I've written a major work on the cosmic Christ, which first arose in the first book of the Christian Bible, namely St. Paul's writings, Colossians and Philippians and Ephesians and so forth. So this is not exactly New Age. Secondly, New Age is, what I appreciate about New Age is that they have sought a marriage of body and spirit. For example, massage is a big thing in New Age. And it came out of Esalen Institute in California back in the 60s. And that's a good thing, you know, the realization that being touched is kind of healthy, and not being touched can lead to various neuroses. So I respect their quest to bring body and spirit together. And of course, their quest for the cosmic Christ as light. They're looking for some good news in the midst of all this pessimism of modern consciousness. But the problem with New Age is that it leaves out the via negativa. They want a Christ without wounds. They want a Christ without wounds. And that's where Christianity has a lot to offer. The via negativa accompanies the via positiva. And you can't just live a life of light and bliss. Yes. So, and then the third thing, and this accompanies that fear of the darkness you get in New Age, is that they're not socially conscious. They don't talk about justice and injustice. It's the same thing because they don't see the darkness in society. And they have this idea, and many of them, frankly, are kind of Buddhists. They think, oh, they believe in reincarnation because what that means to them is, oh, I happen to be very wealthy, but I was born this way. I was destined to be wealthy. And the poor, they're destined to be poor. Maybe next time around they'll be less than poor. Something like that. The point is there's no passion. There's only passion for their own bliss. It's narcissistic and selfish. There's not a passion for relieving the pain of others and so forth. So those are my big disagreements with New Age. But I give them credit for caring about the cosmos. They are trying to bring psyche and cosmos together. And science. They dabble in science. They care about the body somewhat. They don't care about the body politic, however, because they're unwilling to see darkness. And I can tell you a story. There's a church in America called Unity Church. And they emphasize mysticism, which is a great thing, because the Catholic Church doesn't, and the Protestant churches don't. So I give them credit for that. But they tend to be quite New Age. Although many of them read my work and they wonder. So I was asked to speak in a Unity Church in a city in the United States a number of years ago. And the pastor, and the city is in downtown where there's a lot of suffering and homeless and all the rest. The pastor called me into his office and he said, you know, my people don't want to hear about darkness, what you call the via negativa. He said they come into church and they walk over homeless people to get into church, and they don't allow me to preach about it. And he broke down and cried. And he said, you know, this is my via negativa. He said, I cannot preach that. So that's the problem with New Age. And I've critiqued it in writing. But let me tell you this, I think it has more going for it than frozen, rigid, Ratzinger ideological versions of Catholicism or Christianity. I do, because at least they're searching. Mm-hmm. And they're asking questions about body, about matter, about science, about cosmology, and about mysticism that need to be asked.
But you talk about narcissism also in the church then, or even more in the church and in the New Age, right?
Yes.
And you offer a solution that this meditation should not be focused on the inside so much. Can you say something about what it means that you have spiritual practices that are really spiritual, that are transforming the inner person, the inner individual, but they're not focused on the inside? Mm-hmm. How does that work?
Mm-hmm. Well, that's a great question. And I think science comes in here too. The way I like to talk to people of meditation today is to talk about our three brains. The reptilian brain, 420 million years old, the mammal brain, 210 million years old, and of course the neocortex, the creative intellectual brain, much, much newer. And my thesis is this, that our society, which is so patriarchal, rewards the reptilian brain. I mean, look around you. Berlusconi here, and Dick Cheney and Bush in America. So there you go, you know. But also the corporations, you see, mining the sea till there are no fish left, mining the land until there's no land left, you know. This is all reptilian stuff because it's about gobbling everything up for yourself. And of course, the reptilian brain is not about bonding. The reptiles don't bond very well. Reptiles lie alone in the sun. And so they're good at solitude, and that's what meditation is. So the way we tame the reptilian brain is through meditation. It's like saying, nice crocodile brain, nice crocodile brain. It calms down, it's happy. Then the mammal brain can assert itself. And the mammal brain is the compassionate brain. This is why in Hebrew and in Arabic, the word for compassion comes from the word for womb. So the womb people, the mammals, bring a special sense of kinship, family, tribe, and compassion into the world. So I think any practice we do that calms the reptilian brain, especially at this time in history, is necessary. The reptilian brain, I don't know if there's been scientific studies on this, but there should be. What's the connection between the reptilian brain and testosterone? Because I think that the excessive patriarchy and misdefined definitions of masculinity that run our cultures are a big part of the problem. That's why there's such resistance to the return of the divine feminine and to the role of women as partners and not inferiors. That's one of the biggest struggles happening, obviously, in the planet today, is to bring the divine feminine and the sacred masculine together. And again, I think spiritual practices do this. Like Hildegard of Bingen says, there's wisdom in all creative works. So creativity itself teaches men and women a balance of receptivity and action. And I think this is the goal, really, of all meditation. So I talk a lot, we practice in my pedagogy what we call art is meditation. It may be painting, it may be dance, it may be chanting, it may be play. But it's not about producing a product, which is capitalism. It's about entering a process. In these processes, you become humble again. You become close to the earth and clay. You become attuned to color and shadow and shape and form in painting. And all this literally, I think, heals the psyche and integrates matter and psyche. All art is fleshy. All art is incarnational. It's bringing matter and spirit together. And again, I think the West is very good at this, all the art we've produced and all the rest, but we haven't connected. Religion has failed to see it as a spiritual practice. Now, one of the gifts I've received from my Dominican lineage is the idea that study is a spiritual practice. And of course, this is a Jewish idea too. If you study the Torah with your heart, not just your head, but together, it's prayer. So I was taught that, and this is why science, you see, science itself can be a spiritual practice. Because if you bring your heart to it and not just some kind of raging ego and quest for fame, you're going to beat your other scientific opponents with your reptilian brain to the finish line and get the Nobel Prize first, something like that. You know, that drives a certain number of scientists, and of course it drives them crazy and nutty, and they do immoral things. But we're all capable of this. So I think that even walking in the woods, walking by water, which I love to do, these are meditative practices. They silence the mind, and they take you into that place of deep listening and deep silence where you're refreshed and where you encounter the God of the apophatic divinity, the God of silence and darkness, the Godhead, the God of mystery, not just God who is God of history and creation, but the Godhead, the great mother in which the whole universe rests